Hi, this is Carol Parisi, and I am interviewing Jodi Carroll. And Jodi Carroll is the founder of VoteFacts. Jodi, you have a very interesting story. I know that you have said that you voted for President Obama in 2008, and you no longer support him. What changed your mind?
Well, actually that could take up an hour of your time, but I know we're short on time. But let me start with why I voted for him.
Okay.
Back in 2008, some of the biggest issues that I was concerned with was the fact that we were so divided as a nation, and the fact that our fiscal trajectory was so nerve-wracking, and our debt was just getting so high. I was very nervous about those things.
Under a Republican administration.
Sure. And, there's a lot of blame to go around. But I didn't care in 2008. Honestly, I don't care now. I just want solutions. But 2008, for me, I voted for the person who said, there is not a liberal America or a conservative America. There is the United States of America. I voted for the person who said, I promise to tell the American people the truth, even if they don't like it. I voted for the guy who said, it's irresponsible and unpatriotic to be adding so much to our national debt. So these three things speak to what I call my 3 Ds: debt, division, and dishonesty. And dishonesty was an issue for me in 2008, but not as much as it is now. Because let me start then to tell you, to break each one of those down. I start with division. Because to me, the division in this nation is truly heartbreaking. And June 2012, a Pew Research poll has this nation more polarized than we have ever been. And I don't place all the blame for that at Barack Obama's doorstep, because we who participate in the blame game are responsible as well. But the problem is that the president sets the tone for the nation. Mm-hmm. And I have watched over 4 years as this president seems to, I feel like it's almost like a political strategy to pick some little group here to blame, pick another little group here to blame. And, I would like to say to this president that, when you blame some, you divide all. Because when you blame some group, that group invariably stands up and says, well, wait a minute, that's not right. And, the people who don't like the blame game stand up in their defense and say, well, wait a minute, that's not right. And the people who like the blame game and kind of get juiced by it and are pushing it stand up and say, yeah, blame them, blame them. And so we end up
all
like
fighting
this.
Each other and getting nothing accomplished.
Yes, like this, to the point then we just go our separate ways.
Well, there's a war on women, there's class warfare that's going on, and you are exactly correct. We're not a red America, we're not a blue America, we're the United States of America. Right. And those words were very soothing and very comforting.
They spoke to me on a very, very deep level, because that's exactly how I feel. I love my liberal friends. I love my conservative friends. I want my liberal friends to be free to live and act and feel and be just as liberalism provides for them. Similarly, it's the same thing with my conservative friends. I just don't want either one using the federal government to force any of us to live under liberalism or conservatism.
And that's what freedom really is.
That is what freedom is. And so when he said those words in 2004, that's what I was interpreting. Yes, that is, if we can let each other be who they are, liberals be and act and live as liberals, and conservatives be and act and live as conservatives, and be united in the promise of freedom. That's really the thing that unites us. It should be what unites us is the promise of freedom.
So the division was a big part for what?
Huge.
And your other
huge.
Things.
That is a huge thing. That is just huge for me.
And
it
clearly
breaks my heart.
And clearly
truly.
This president, from the pulpit, if you will, perpetrates a lot of division.
Yes.
And I think there is a political strategy behind that.
Well, I don't want to put all the blame on his doorstep, but he is the president. He does set the tone.
It's called leadership.
I have watched him divide this nation further, and it's really...
That's not what you bought into in 28 when you cast your vote for him. It's
distressing to me on a very deep level, very distressing to me. But I'm going to move on to the next D, because I have division and then dishonesty. Now, again, I voted for the man who said, I promise to tell the American people the truth, always, even if they don't like it. I have watched him over the last 4 years look into our cameras and tell the American people that his budgets reduce the deficit. And let me just tell you what the Congressional Budget Office has said, because the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has looked at every single budget that he has submitted. And for his first budget, the cumulative deficit for his first budget would more than double what we were expecting without his budget. His second budget, the cumulative 10-year deficit, would nearly double. The third budget that he submitted, the cumulative deficit was $2.8 trillion more. And his most recent budget from March of 2012, it was going to add an extra $3.5 trillion over the next 10 years.
And that's not including the trillions he's already added to the deficit.
Well, that's true. That's true, and I am really going to get to that. But
the immoral adding to the deficit by his own words.
Well, it's really disturbing that, I'm distressed by, we all know politicians, they bend facts and they do this and they choose words wisely that really mislead people and whatever. But when you really lie to me about the direction you're intending to take our economy and our budget, I'm very distressed by that. And so for me, that dishonesty is one of the biggest reasons I cannot support this president.
Well, can I ask you a little bit about the dishonesty? Is also the transparency. This is going to be the most transparent White House. Do you find that this White House is transparent in their things that they're doing, like health care?
I don't even know. I'll be honest with you. I'm so jaded at this point. I don't even know if I can speak to transparency because I have a feeling we see a tip of an iceberg that we don't even know. So I don't even know what they're not being transparent about. But I don't feel like, if he's not being honest, how can I even speak to transparency? Because that doesn't seem to work for me.
Yeah. How about, now you're talking about debt. That's another big issue.
So debt is a really big issue for me. Again, I'm going to repeat, candidate Obama said, it's irresponsible and unpatriotic that George W. Bush added $4 trillion in 8 years all by his lonesome.
How much has President Obama added?
So he has added over $5 trillion and he hasn't even completed his first term.
And now George W. Bush was a 8-year term. It was 2 terms.
8 years, $4 trillion.
$4 trillion.
Okay, now let me just say, I don't hold President Obama responsible for I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's his fault we have $5 trillion. But he holds a lot of responsibility for a lot of the things that go into it. Let me just get into some of the arguments that I hear from people when you bring up the $5 trillion, and people there are people who kind of want to shield the president from any accountability for that. And one of the things that I often hear is, he inherited a really big mess and it was expensive to get out of. The last I looked, which was, I think, September 6th, we had spent $722 billion on the economic stimulus that was supposed to fix the mess that we were in. Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to ask, well, where's the other $4 trillion? So, to getting out of this mess was $722 billion so far, and where's the other $4 trillion? To which I often get, well, a lot of these were built into the budget before he got into office. And as someone who voted for change, I have a really big problem with that because I voted for change. And so 4 years later, we don't have a new budget. These budget issues haven't been resolved. We're going to look back 4 years ago and say, yeah, these were budget policies from these guys. Why? Mm-hmm. Why has our federal government not passed a budget in 4 years? And
the House passed a budget.
Well, our federal government has not passed a budget into law.
Right.
It has not been signed by our president. But that is true and an excellent point. And another thing, and I'm not sure a lot of people know this, but January 8th, 2009, 12 days before inauguration, the Congressional Budget Office came out with their budget outlook. And in that budget outlook, they were anticipating drops in revenues. They were anticipating some tough times ahead. And they were going based on current taxing and spending policies. Mm-hmm. So 12 days before he took office, they had anticipated a markedly different picture right now. We were going to be like $264 billion would be our deficit right now. In 2011. 2011, it was almost 1.3 trillion. So he kind of inherited a little bit less, a little bit different, and I know it's just projections, but the budget policies that he inherited were really going in a much better direction than what we've actually lived out.
So we did get some change then.
Well, we got added spending, markedly added spending.
Okay.
And tax cuts, things that tend to make the deficit worse. And there is a reduction in tax revenues for the government that is added to the debt. That is true.
Now, I guess it seems like I should assume that you're going to be voting for Mitt Romney in 2012.
Yes, but let me elaborate. Back in 2008, I had a choice between two men, neither of whom had ever been the president of the United States. Essentially, I was choosing between the words of two men. And, as I said, Barack Obama spoke beautifully to me. Now, in 2012, I have the words of one man, and I have the presidential actions of another man. And so this is a choice of, the direction our country is going. And I'm sorry, but I have seen Barack Obama's plan for America, his vision for America. Actually, I've seen it in action. It is divided people. It is much more debt, and it is dishonesty. And so, this guy over here, the one that's speaking good words to me again, I'm going to vote for him. But I can tell you this, if President Romney thinks that he's going to pick up the torch of debt, division, and dishonesty, I will be front and center to say, that's not okay with me. I am not okay with that. So I'm kind of until he walks the walk, he's going to get my vote. I'm looking forward to voting for him, but I'm nervous. And until I see him walk the walk, it's just talk for me. But I will tell you this, I've had some time to think about his choice of running mate as Paul Ryan. And his first presidential decision to choose Paul Ryan tells me that he is absolutely intent on walking the walk of the debt problem.
Absolutely.
Because no one has pounded the pavement more, no one has been more focused.
Budget
no
hawk.
one has literally offered multiple
Solutions.
Plans on paper, scored by the Congressional Budget Office, that doesn't just flower things over, it literally addresses the major issues. And maybe some people don't like, the choices that he makes, but at least he's actually doing something. Whereas our president is doing nothing and telling us he's doing something different than he's actually trying to do with his budget.
He's still blaming the former president. And if you notice a lot of his campaigning, those words that he said in 2008, he's saying them again now. And that's what's scary. And leadership is walking the talk and making tough choices.
Absolutely.
Now, Jodi, you've told me that you've been a liberal your whole life. How would you describe yourself now?
Well, I kind of got burned by using the liberal label, because I think, when you do the label, you kind of get blinders on. Okay, so if it's a liberal that says it, it must be true. If it's a conservative that says it, it must be a lie. And so I really don't want to blind myself with a label, but I'm kind of an issues person, so I'm going to look at each issue based on its own facts and merits. But I will tell you that, I consider myself a moderate from this standpoint. I consider myself a moderate from the standpoint that, for me, moderates are people who they're not so partisan that they're unwilling to sit down and go over actual data and facts and process information and bring facts into their discussion. To me, that's what a moderate is.
It's called pragmatic. That's the way our lawmakers should be. But
that's the way I feel like, I'm willing to do that. So from that standpoint, I feel like I'm moderate. But I will say that on some issues, I'm not necessarily when I come to my conclusion, for example, Medicare vouchers, people will say, oh, that is radical, extreme, Medicare vouchers. And I look and I think to myself, isn't it so much more extreme and radical that, for exhaustion to happen in 2022 or 2024. The CBO says 2022. So isn't that radical that we face exhaustion? And so, we would have paid into it and gotten nothing. Whereas
right.
I say, okay, at least I'm prepared. I know what's coming. And okay, well, at least I get a voucher.
Now, Jodi, you are really concerned with how difficult it is for individuals to become educated voters. And that is why you started and created votefacts.org. Can you please talk a little bit about how you see our current media and educating the American populace through media? That's where most folks' information comes.
Yes. As much as I can sink my teeth into the political stuff, the media stuff is really what drives me and keeps me up at night. Because even after this election is over, we still have this problem. And this is a really dangerous problem.
Do you think the media plays politics?
Here's what I think.
Perception politics.
I can't speak to, their motives or anything like that. I can only tell you what I see, and what I see is that it has become a full-time job for people to be educated voters in this country. And the media is really derelict in their duties at helping us, evolve through that education process. They're not just failing. I think they're really markedly making the education process worse for voters. And so I kind of want to wake people up to that, to say, really, listen, you're getting our media, it's not really participating in promoting discussions. It's not really interested in promoting discussions, it seems to me. It's more interested in taking really sensationalized talking points and giving those to people, and then people end up just talking at each other.
Sound bites.
The really sensationalized sound bites. And the media is participating in it. I feel like, a lot of the times the chatter is up here, and all the stuff people really need to know is down
the
here.
level.
And nobody's getting there.
Now, what have you done real quick with VoteFacts? You have gone through a lot of this information, and you actually have a website, and it's votefacts.org.
Votefacts.org. I'm trying to help people silence the media noise. I'm trying to, the fact that it's a full-time job to be an educated voter, I'm trying to have a solution to that. So a place where people can go and look at the main, really pressing issues, because we're heading in a very dangerous direction. I'm going to read you one thing about debt. This is from the 2010 Debt Commission report. And they said, the numbers could have changed a little bit since it was 2010, but it could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But by 2020, our national budget could be as high for servicing our debt. Paying interest on our debt could be $1 trillion.
Just the interest.
Just interest on the debt. That buys us nothing. We get nothing in return for that. We don't even pay down our debt for that.
And $1 trillion, if you spent $1 million since the time Christ was born, if you spent it every day, you'd still have like 700 years to be reaching $1 trillion. So that's a big number.
Let me put it into federal budget perspective. In 2011, our healthcare spending, the federal healthcare spending, was $856 billion. Our total discretionary spending, which is education, transportation, research and development, military, a whole slew of other things, that spending was $1.3 trillion. So when you think about that my kids are going to be teenagers, and our federal budget is going to be almost consumed by
it's interest payment.
Interest. What is going to happen with them? What happens with their future?
Now, Jodi, one last point. You are in healthcare, and I know that's also a really big subject for you. That's where that's the field that you've chosen to be in. What sort of vision do you have for a healthcare system for America that would be solution oriented?
Yeah, well, I like to start this conversation with not where we were and not where we're going. And I'm going to I want to start by giving an example, because whenever you talk about healthcare, people can they come to that discussion with one of two thoughts: where we were and where we're going. But I want to give a third option. And here's an example. There's a healthcare provider in North Carolina. Actually, they're blossoming all over the country. This is the great thing about American innovation. There's a healthcare provider in North Carolina, primary care, and they have a story of one of their patients who she was diabetic. She had a 15-year-old son. Her husband left her and her son uninsured. So for a year of being uninsured, she paid like $5,500 for her health care. And then she found these guys, and these guys are free market. They've never taken insurance. They don't take health insurance. They don't take government insurance. This is just me and you, baby. And for a year with them, she paid $450 for her health care, and her diabetes was better controlled.
What's the name of this organization?
It's at votefacts.org. There's so many of them now in my head.
That's fine.
But this is the one that I have the example of. It used to be Primary Care Direct, and I think they changed their name.
There are different systems that folks can go get their own health care, cut the cost, pay for it, and not cost taxpayer dollars.
They've been doing this for a while. And so when you hear that, does it all of a sudden you think, okay, wait, healthcare might be affordable to me?
Well, healthcare can be affordable.
Under that scenario. And some of these providers, they're able to get, so you could afford a mammogram. I don't know, I can't remember what the numbers were, like $100 or $200 to get your mammogram. They're bargaining with specialists to get low-cost services so that the bulk of what most people need, even people who are here illegally, are suddenly included in the pool. Because I talked with these physicians on the phone, and they don't care if you're here legally or illegally. They don't care if you're uninsured. They don't care if you're sick. I'm a doctor. They give you their list of, it's actually affordable. And then when you pull all of those services out of your health insurance premium, then your health insurance premium goes down. And I don't know if they did the pilot or there was some other pilot, I think it was in Ohio, that suggested that a system that is kind of founded, the foundation is kind of like that, where the bulk of what people need is direct out of pocket because it's so cheap, really reduced Medicaid costs.
Wow.
So that is a good
It sounds like free market kind of competitive, where you go out and you find better costs.
It is.
Jodi, how can these listeners get more information from you? Some of this is going to be on the VoteFacts website.
Sure.
But if someone gets this YouTube sent by a friend, could you direct our
Sure.
viewers?
Well, they can go to votefacts.org, www.votefacts.org.
VOTE.
Facts as in
FACTS. Okay, not FAX.
No.
FACTX.
No.
.org.
Right, and they can just email me through the contact page, and that'll come to me.
Well, thank you, Jodi
Thank
Carroll.
you so much.
And thank you for being a good American
Thank
and
you
a
so much.
united
Thank you
American.
for having me.
Have a great day. Thank you for watching.